guys weren't very advanced lifters. They just happened to pick it up and wanted to push more weight. So I actually got into using boards quite a bit with my shirt, and had troubles once I got into competition, early in my career, where you get so reliant on that board, you're almost training yourself that that's your touching point. And then if you don't take the board away until competition, you get on the platform and that board's not there, it throws everything off. So that's early in my career I did, and that's part of the reason why I stopped doing it. And I just continued to do it that way. Plus, maybe in some ways it makes me feel like I'm training more control of the weight, because if I'm using a weight where it's not touching, I bring it down, I hold it just like you would on a board, but I still have to stabilize the weight like I would if I was going full range.
Right. Now, let's say for your 600-pound bench attempt, where would you in training, where would you be able to touch a weight to your chest? Like I mean, you're benching without boards, you're benching pretty much free, and you're waiting until that weight locks up, and then you're pressing. You're not trying to forcibly pull it down. Right. I know that a lot of people will try to push and pull it down. But you said you kind of just wait till that shirt locks up, and then you press up from wherever it is. Where do you start touching with that shirt? On your, when your goal is a 600-pound bench in the meet. Right.
Well, it's funny. I did 2 meets back to back. When I did the 600, I did the IPA Nationals first, and opened with 560. And I was able to touch. I was touching 560 fine in the gym with the plan to attempt 600, and I missed 600 at that meet at lockout. So I went to another meet the very next month. And funny enough, I had gotten a new shirt for this meet because obviously you start getting into if I had a brand new shirt, I'd get that much more pop out of it. And I got the shirt, and the first time I wore that shirt was on the platform, so I had to go move up in numbers, and it was 580 that I touched on the platform. First I went 580, then 600, but typically it was right around between 565, 575 that I would be touching in the gym.
So basically you're really only touching what your planned opener is, or right there around it. Anything lower than that, you're really not touching in the gym at all.
No. And again, I don't force it. I probably should a little more, but it seems like when I'm on the nowadays, anyways, when I'm on the platform, even if I've had some issues touching, of course I've had occasions where my training cycle, for whatever reason, it was hard to touch, and even my opener, I was having issues touching in the gym, but on the platform, it's a different situation, I guess, with all the pressure on, you're able to pull it in and touch.
Right. Well, but let's say you're in the middle of your training cycle, and let's say now do you do reps, or you just do all singles? How do you do that with the shirt?
Well, it depends on what point of the training cycle.
Let's say you're at the point. Let's say at the point where you're handling 500 pounds, and your goal is to bench 600 in the meet. And so, what would you do? Would you do like 500 for a triple and not touch your chest, or does the bar get lower each time? I know, because the way I'm asking is, the Metal Militia used to believe, Bill Crawford used to believe, you're a big believer in triples with the shirt, figuring that by the time you get to your third rep, your body is so tired that you really can't stop the weight from touching almost.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're sort of just so worn out that you're not fighting the shirt anymore, and the thing just touches and you press it up. Is that your approach to it, or do you have a different mindset to that?
Yeah, I have a similar approach. That is true, and that does work. You'd be surprised. You do sets of 3, and that does happen very often, where on the third rep you are so gassed that you couldn't physically stop the bar if you wanted to, and it will touch.
Right.
But usually what I like to do is the first couple weeks of a training cycle for me in my shirt, I'll work triples. And obviously it's earlier in your training, so it's a bit lighter weight. And then so I'll do that for a couple weeks, and then I'll change to doubles, and then the last probably 3 weeks or so are all singles. So you kind of get the both benefit. Obviously for me, for all of us, for bench press, you're working for that one rep max strength. But it does help to build up a little bit of endurance, and time under the bar is always helpful. So a similar approach. I know that they'll do that continuously, pretty much through their cycle, that 3 rep max all the way through. And I kind of mix it up. The first couple weeks I'll do set to 3, and also, it just kind of helps build your strength, get you used to, especially if you had some layoff time, get you used, your CNS used to handling the weight again. And so I'll do 3s for a couple weeks, and then 2s, and then switch to heavy singles. But I really focus on a lot of tricep and back work. In fact, when I was after I did 600 pounds, actually just about last year, I really increased my back work and really focused on heavy, basic back exercises, and I really saw an increase in my bench press.
Mm-hmm. Now, so let's talk about the tricep day. I'm interested in that because when you do your tricep day, do you incorporate pressing, I'll call it bench pressing movements, but like a board press or, floor press or anything like that sort of works the chest and the triceps, or is it just isolating triceps with like extensions and stuff like that, push downs? What is your what do you do with that?
Yeah, it's actually a focus right on the triceps. I have done in the past, pin presses, floor presses, things like that. But over time, my shoulder, I have a shoulder that will act up here and there, and that seems to aggravate my shoulder. If I do pin presses or floor presses, sometimes I'll throw them in after my shirted workout. But usually what I'll do is I'll go in, I do tricep extensions, and obviously as heavy as I can go, 2 hands on 1 dumbbell behind the head, and a lot of pressing work. So I'll do those. I'll do weighted dips from time to time, and then I'll do a few variations of push downs. So I'll do the V bar. I'll do push downs there, and then I'll do tricep with the ropes, almost like
bodybuilding.
Almost like, and just to kind of really work the triceps.
Now, there's some people who believe that like extension, like I've read this from a lot of different people. I have different, like Metal Militia says that too, by the way, that there is no carry or with like a thing like a tricep extension into the bench. Now, Louis is a huge believer in extensions. And I know I know Vinny DiZenzo used to be a big believer in extension. I'm not sure if his elbows can take it anymore, but do you think that the carryover on a movement like tricep extensions is the same as like a close grip sideboard press or a narrower grip rack press? I mean, do you feel that the carryover is the same? Would you do those other movements if your shoulder didn't bother you, or if you didn't think it affected the bench?
I believe in extensions. I really do. Like I said, you're hitting, I just feel when I'm focusing, when I have a day like that where I'm focusing strictly on triceps and I'm not incorporating any type of pressing motion, I feel that I've gotten a big benefit of it, and I feel that there is a carryover in it. Probably just as much or maybe more of doing, like a close grip board press, and things like that, because with the different variations of tricep exercises, you're able to hit all the heads of your tricep and really build them up. And the thing is, like, people who maybe that I work with that don't know much about lifting in general, everybody thinks that, and this is my theory, everybody thinks that bench pressing is, they immediately think chest. Well, yeah, I mean, the way I feel about it is, the chest is involved, and I would say more off your chest is where you're incorporating that, but the bulk of it, especially the finishing of the exercise, is tricep and back.
Right.
And that's kind of what got me into really hitting the triceps and my back as hard as possible.
Now, when you talk about back work, is it rowing stuff, T-bar rows, barbell rows, dumbbell rows, that type of thing, or more pull down, pulley rows, those type of things?
I do a combination of both. I mean, I incorporate both, but a lot of pull downs, low rows, but I still do T-bar row, dumbbell row, and try, and just try to, I'll switch them around every few weeks just to kind of keep it interesting, after a while doing the same thing, but it's just basic, as heavy as you can go exercises, and like I said, I do use a combination of both. I do the dumbbell rows, T-bar rows, but I also do low cable row, lat pull downs,
Hey,
Two different grips, wide and inside grip.
Now, you started out in the sport, you were wearing a denim, and you now switched to the Inzer Phenom. What is the difference? Because me and Jamie talk about this a lot as well. I mean, we're both kind of sort of in the same level with bench, and he was obviously much better than me way in the past, but he's now coming back, and my bench is never going to be. No one's going to confuse me with Dave Hoff anytime soon. But the old shirts compared to the newer poly shirts,
mm-hmm.
I feel that the Rage X is very similar to the way the denims used to be. They're tighter, and they definitely give more support, I think. But like I won the Phenom only a couple times, and I don't think it was that well fitted. It seemed like it was much easier to touch,
mm-hmm.
and you sort of feel the weight in the Phenom, but it presses up like almost like a slingshot effect once
right.
you start to press. Where the Rage X sort of works the same way the denims used to, where it's more. It's the shirt is taking the weight for you, and you have to press it up yourself. So you get a spring out of it, but the difference between the Phenom and the Rage X, I think, is pretty drastic as far as the actual spring up. How do you feel about that compared to your old denim shirts?
Well, first of all, the Rage X is a definitely the perfect crossover shirt for someone going from denim and getting into the new polys. Because you're right, they're very similar. You get sort of a little bit of the rebound action from the poly world out of the Rage, but you get the rigidness of the denims out of the Rage as well.
Right.
So I mean, we cross guys over, guys that I train with that are in like a black denim, an Inzer black denim, and they want to sort of test the waters of a poly, and that's the natural transition is into a Rage. Because they do react somewhat similar. For me, I'm a grinder, always have been. Even if I'm warming up raw, it's just for whatever reason that's just how I bench. It's slow and steady, so to speak. And the denims would assist me. I broke world records in denims, and I think they're great shirts. But it only added to I still was grinding the weight. And when I crossed over into the Phenom, you're right, it's a stretchier material, and it does give you that spring. The first time I did a rep in a Phenom, I was hooked right then because the amount of bar speed it allowed me to attain, because it is a stretchier material, so you stretch the shirt and you do get that slingshot effect.
Right.
Like I said, the first rep I did in one, I was hooked, and I don't see me going back anytime soon. But the thing with the Phenom is a lot of it is in the setup of the shirt. When I first got mine, I wasn't really sure how to wear it, and I was wearing it like I had worn my denim. Sleeves up as high, pulled up as high as I could get them, and then pulling the front down, which
right.
is like the old Metal Militia style of setting up the shirt, which is you wear you pull the sleeves on as high as you can go, and then just pull the front down, and you're set. I originally tried that, and I was experiencing the same thing where you feel a lot of the weight, although you still get good response from it, and it's somewhat easier to touch. And then we started fooling around with the shirt, and found that the setup is key. And first of all, they got to be tight. And I know that's sort of a blanket statement for shirts. Most of us feel that they can't be too tight. But you got to have them tight, especially in the arms. And what I found in messing with the shirt is that the setup is what's going to get you the big result out of the shirt. And what I actually do is, I'll pull the shirt on like you normally would. I'll pull it all the way up. And my warm-up sets, I keep it that way. And once I get to around 500 pounds, maybe 525, I start tweaking the shirt. And what I found works best for me is to try to bench off the collar as much as possible. It's got the big super collar on it. And if you look at the shirt, there really is no defined chest plate.
Yeah.
Like on the denims, you can actually see the way it sticks, that you can see the chest plate in the shirt. And even just holding it up and looking at it, you can see that there is some distance between the two sleeves. But if you look at a Phenom, you only have maybe 3-4 inches at the collar between the seams on each sleeve, where each sleeve connects to the chest plate.
Right.
So what I found that works best is if you put the shirt on and then have someone put their finger in the back part of the sleeve where your tricep is and pull that down. And you want to pull it down, if it's a graduate, the larger attempts, you want to pull it down a little bit more. But for instance, when I did 600, I had the tricep part pulled down to just about my elbow. And what it does is it bunches that material up by your tricep toward my elbow. And I think the way that best describes it is if you've ever done dumbbell presses, you have somebody spot your elbows.
Right.
And when you get towards the top, if you're sort of struggling and they push in on your elbows a little bit, the weight sort of shoots to lockout. And that's kind of the response you get out of the shirt that way. And then obviously pulling it down in the front. And what you're trying to do really is, with the support that low on your arms and the front of the shirt pulled down, you've sort of created a power band across the center of your chest. So when you're all the way down at your chest, you'll feel a large amount of support. The back of your triceps, straight line right across the nipple line of your chest, and then into your other tricep. And that's where I've seen the best results on that shirt. And I truly believe it's fit and then mostly setup of the shirt that will allow you to get the best performance out of it.
Okay. Joe, I'd like to thank you for coming aboard. You've been a fantastic guest. Also, folks, next month in Powerlifting USA, me and Joe are going to co-write an article on cutting weight for meets, so look for that next month. Joe, again, I'd like to thank you for coming aboard, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Bill, thank you, as always.
All right,
always a great Billy's Pit. And you guys are listening to Big Evil's Lair, and we will be back after these messages.